Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Horizon's Edge, staring at the screen that showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. They had been traveling through the Kepler sector for 3 weeks now, mapping new systems and looking for signs of life. So far, they have found nothing but rocks and gas clouds. "Sir, I'm picking up something strange," said Lisa Grant from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, a young woman with short brown hair who had joined the crew just 6 months ago. Her fingers moved quickly over her controls as she tried to make sense of what her equipment was telling her. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "It's a signal, but not like anything I've seen before. It's coming from somewhere about 2 million kilometers ahead of us." Lisa frowned at her screen. "The weird thing is, it sounds almost like music." "Music?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure it's not just interference?" "I thought so at first. But listen to this." Lisa played the signal through the bridge speakers. What came out was a series of tones that rose and fell in patterns that did sound musical, even though it was unlike any music Jake had ever heard. Dr. Alex Carter, the ship's scientist, looked up from his own workstation. He was a tall man with gray hair who had spent most of his life studying alien life forms. "That's definitely not natural," he said. "Natural signals don't have that kind of pattern." "Can you tell where it's coming from?" Jake asked. Lisa worked at her controls for a few more minutes. "Got it. There's something out there about the size of a large building. It's not moving, just drifting in space." Jake made his decision quickly. "Set course for the signal source. Let's go take a look." The Horizon's Edge changed direction and began moving toward the mysterious object. As they got closer, their screens began to show more details. What they found was not what anyone expected. "That's a ship," said Danny Walsh. "Their pilot." He was a young man who had grown up on Mars and knew spacecraft better than most people knew their own cars. "But I've never seen anything like it." The alien vessel was enormous, at least 3 times the size of their own ship. Its hull was a dark purple color that seemed to shimmer in the light of nearby stars. Strange symbols covered its surface, and it had a shape that was both beautiful and completely foreign. "Are there any life signs?" Jake asked. Alex ran his scanners over the alien ship. Nothing. No heat, no movement, no signs of life. "It looks like it's been drifting out here for a very long time. The signal is definitely coming from inside." Lisa added, "It's getting stronger now that we're closer." Jake thought for a moment. Finding an alien ship was the kind of discovery that could change everything for humanity, but it could also be dangerous. "Lisa, try to contact them. Send out a standard greeting in as many languages as we know." Lisa sent out signals in dozens of human languages, plus the mathematical patterns that scientists thought might be universal. They waited, but there was no response. "The ship appears to be dead," Alex said after running more scans. "But that signal is still broadcasting. Whatever is making it must be running on some kind of backup power." Jake made another decision. "We're going aboard. Danny, bring us alongside. Alex, Lisa, you're with me. Ben, you stay here and monitor everything." Ben Hayes, their engineer, nodded. He was an older man who preferred working with machines to exploring mysterious alien ships. "Be careful in there, Captain." Getting onto the alien ship was easier than expected. They found what looked like an airlock, and their equipment showed that there was breathable air inside. The alien ship's system seemed to recognize their presence and opened doors for them as they moved through its corridors. The inside of the ship was as strange as the outside. The walls curved in ways that hurt to look at, and the lighting came from strips that glowed with soft blue light. Everything was built for beings that were taller than humans, but not by much. "This place feels sad," Lisa said as they walked through. "The empty corridors." "I know that sounds weird, but that's what it feels like." Jake knew what she meant. There was something about the ship that felt lonely, like a house where no one had lived for a very long time. They passed room after room that looked like they had once been living spaces, but now held only dust and shadows. The signal was getting stronger as they moved deeper into the ship. Finally, they found the room it was coming from. When the door slid open, all three humans stopped and stared. The room was huge, with a ceiling that stretched up into darkness. But what caught their attention were the thousands of crystal formations that filled the space. Each crystal was about the size of a person's head, and they all glowed with a soft inner light. The crystals were arranged in neat rows, like books. In a library. What are they? Jake asked. Alex approached one of the crystals carefully. His scanner showed that it was made of materials they had never seen before. I'm not sure, but they're all connected somehow. The signal is coming from all of them at once. Lisa walked to a different crystal and placed her hand near it. As soon as she did, the crystal began to glow brighter, and the musical signal got louder. They're responding to us, she said with excitement. Don't touch anything yet, Jake warned. We don't know what they do. But as Lisa moved her hand closer to the crystal, something amazing happened. The air above the crystal began to shimmer, and suddenly they could see images floating in the space above it. The images showed an alien being, tall and thin with 4 arms and large eyes that looked almost human in their sadness. The alien in the image was holding something in 2 of its hands. It looked like a flat rectangle covered with smaller images. Jake realized with a shock that it looked like a photograph, the kind that humans used to take with old cameras. It's a memory, Alex said in wonder. Somehow, these crystals are storing memories. The image showed the alien looking at its photograph while around it, a world was dying. Cities burned in the distance, and the sky was filled with dark clouds. The alien seemed to be saying goodbye to whatever was in that photograph. Then the image faded, and the crystal's light dimmed back to normal. There are thousands of these crystals, Lisa said, looking around the room. If each one contains a memory like that, ... Then we found the story of an entire civilization, Jake finished for her. The question is, why did they leave this for us to find? Back on the horizon's edge, the crew worked around the clock to understand what they had found. Jake had ordered them to bring several of the memory crystals aboard for study. The crystals sat in the ship's science lab, glowing softly under the bright lights. Dr. Alex Carter had been studying the crystals for 2 days straight. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but he was too excited to rest. These crystals are incredible, he told Jake. They're storing information in a way we've never seen before. It's not just data like our computers use. It's something much more complex. What do you mean? Jake asked. Think about how we store memories in our computers, Alex explained. We save pictures, videos, sounds as separate files. But these crystals are storing the actual experience of remembering. Not just what the alien saw, but what it felt when it saw it. Maya Brooks, the ship's language expert, was working at another table covered with papers and computer screens. She was a quiet woman who spoke 12 human languages and had been trying to decode alien communications for most of her career. I've been studying the patterns in the signals, she said without looking up. The aliens didn't use language the way we do. Lisa Grant sat nearby, listening to the musical signals through her headphones. She had always been good with patterns, which made her excellent at her job in communications. But there was something else about Lisa that most of the crew didn't know. Before joining the space service, she had studied music and played the violin. Maya's, right? Lisa said, taking off her headphones. These signals aren't words. They're more like emotions turned into sound. What do you mean? Jake asked. Lisa stood up and walked to the whiteboard where Maya had written out the signal patterns. Look at these waveforms. When I was studying music, I learned that different combinations of notes can make people feel different emotions. Happy music uses certain patterns. Sad music uses others. These alien signals are doing the same thing, but much more complex. Maya looked up from her work with interest. You think they communicate through music? Not exactly, Lisa said. I think they feel through music. Like, when we want to express love, we use words. But maybe when these aliens wanted to express love, they used a specific combination of musical tones. Alex joined the conversation. That would explain why the crystals responded to you on the alien ship. You have musical training, so you're naturally sensitive to the emotional patterns in the signals. Jake thought about this. So if Lisa can understand their emotions, maybe she can unlock more of the memories. It's worth trying, Alex said. But she would need to do more than just listen. She would need to respond with music of her own. Lisa felt nervous about the idea, but also excited. I have my violin in my quarters. I brought it with me when I joined the crew, but I haven't played it much since we've been in space. Go get it, Jake said. Let's see what happens. Lisa returned. A few minutes later, carrying a black case. Inside was a violin that had belonged to her grandmother. It was old but well cared for, with a warm brown wood that seemed to glow in the lab's lights. She took the violin out of its case and tuned it carefully. The other crew members watched as she placed one of the glowing crystals on the table in front of her. The crystal pulsed with soft blue light, and the musical signal played quietly through the lab speakers. Lisa listened to the pattern for several minutes, trying to understand the emotions behind it. Then she placed the violin under her chin and began to play dot at first. She just copied the notes she was hearing from the crystal. But as she played, she began to understand what the alien had been feeling when the memory was recorded. There was sadness in the music, but also love and hope. It reminded her of human songs about missing someone who was far away. As Lisa played, something amazing happened. The crystal's light grew brighter, and the air above it began to shimmer again. But this time, the image that appeared was clearer and lasted longer. They could see the alien more clearly now. It had pale blue skin and forearms, with large eyes that looked almost human. It was standing in a room that might have been a home, with furniture and decorations that were beautiful, but completely foreign. In two of its hands, the alien held what was definitely a photograph. The image showed several aliens together, probably a family. There were adults and what looked like children, all with the same pale blue skin and large eyes. As Lisa continued to play, the memory became more detailed. They could see that the alien was crying, though its tears were silver instead of clear like human tears. Outside the windows of the room, they could see a city burning. Ships filled the sky, but they were leaving, not arriving. The alien looked at the photograph one more time, then carefully placed it in a small bag. Then it walked to what looked like a computer and began typing. Words appeared on the screen, but they were in the alien language. Maya, are you getting this? Jake asked quietly. Maya was recording everything. Yes, and I think I'm starting to understand some of the patterns. The alien is writing about the photograph, about the people in it. The memory continued to play as Lisa's violin sang with the emotions of loss and love. They watched as the alien finished writing and then picked up another crystal, just like the ones they had found. The alien placed its hands on the crystal and closed its eyes. The crystal began to glow, and somehow the memory they were watching was being stored inside it. When the memory ended, Lisa lowered her violin. She was crying too, but her tears were warm and human. That alien was saving memories of its family before its world was destroyed, she said. It knew it was going to die, Alex said softly. So it stored its most important memories in the crystals, hoping that someone would find them someday. Maya looked up from her notes. I've been analyzing the text the alien wrote. I think I can translate some of it now. It says something like, for those who will come after, so they will know we loved. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. They left these memories as a message. But why? What did they want us to know? Lisa picked up another crystal. Let me try playing for this one. Maybe we'll find out. As she began to play again, this time choosing a melody that came from her own heart, the second crystal began to glow. But the memory that appeared this time was different. Instead of sadness, there was fear. The alien in this memory was running through corridors that looked like the ones they had explored on the dead ship. Alarms were sounding, and lights were flashing red. Other aliens were running too, all heading in the same direction. The alien reached what looked like the bridge of the ship and began working at controls similar to the ones on human spacecraft. On the main screen, they could see space, but it was wrong somehow. Where there should have been stars, there was nothing but empty blackness. "What is that?" Lisa asked, still playing her violin to keep the memory active. Alex stared at the screen. "I don't know, but whatever it is, it's scared them enough to abandon their homeworld." The memory showed the alien looking one more time at a photograph of its home planet, a beautiful blue and green world that looked almost like Earth. Then the alien activated something on the ship's controls, and the image faded. Lisa lowered her violin again. "There's something else out there," she said. "Something that destroyed their world and made them run. And I think they left these memories to warn us about it." For the next week, Lisa spent most of her time in the science lab playing her violin for the memory crystals. Each crystal told a different story, and slowly the crew began to understand what had happened to the aliens they now called the Veltar. The memories showed a civilization that was both similar to and different from humanity. The Veltar lived in beautiful cities with tall towers that spiraled up into the clouds. They had families and loved ones, just like humans. But unlike humans, they experienced emotions as music. When a Veltar felt happy, they heard bright, cheerful melodies in their minds. When they felt sad, the music was slow and deep. It's like they had a soundtrack playing in their heads all the time, Lisa explained to Jake as she took a break from playing. And when something really important happened, they could store that music along with the memory in these crystals. Maya had been working day and night to translate the Veltar language. She had filled 3 notebooks with symbols and meanings. "I'm starting to understand their writing system," she said. Each memory crystal has text written on its base. They're not random memories. They're organized, like chapters in a book. "What kind of book?" Jake asked. Maya picked up one of the translated pages, the story of their last days. "But more than that, it's a message, Captain. They knew someone would find these crystals someday, and they wanted to tell us something important." Dr. Alex Carter looked up from his own work. He had been studying the crystals themselves, trying to understand how they worked. "I've discovered something interesting about these crystals. They're not just storage devices. They're also receivers. They can detect and respond to specific types of musical patterns from very far away." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means the Veltar could communicate across space using music," Alex explained. "If one Veltar played a certain melody on one planet, another Veltar on a different planet could hear it and respond." Lisa stopped tuning her violin. "That's how they knew about us." Everyone looked at her. "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Lisa walked to the main computer and pulled up some files. "I've been thinking about this for days. The Veltar were so good at understanding emotions through music. And some of their musical patterns are almost identical to human music. I think they heard our radio signals." Maya's eyes went wide. "Our music broadcasts. They've been traveling through space for over 100 years. "Exactly," Lisa said. "The Veltar heard human music and realized we were like them. We express emotions through music too. They knew that if we ever found their crystals, we would be able to understand them." Jake felt a chill. "So they left these memories specifically for us to find." Alex nodded. That would explain why the crystals respond so strongly to Lisa's violin playing. They were designed to activate when they detected human musical patterns. Maya picked up another translated page. "I've been working on the later crystals, the ones that tell about their final days. Captain, I think you need to hear this." She read from her translation. "The darkness comes for all who think and feel. It has taken the Corvani system and the Deltara colonies. We are the last who remember our songs. If you are reading this, then you can make music as we do. You must know that the darkness seeks all who make beauty in the universe. What darkness? Jake asked. Lisa picked up her violin again. Let me try the crystal Maya was working with. Maybe we can see what they meant. She placed the crystal on the table and began to play. This time, she chose a melody that sounded like a warning, something urgent and frightening. The crystal responded immediately, glowing brighter than any of the others had. The memory that appeared made everyone in the room take a step back. They saw a Veltar ship, but it was being attacked by something that was hard to look at directly. It seemed to be made of darkness itself, a black shape that moved through space like liquid shadow. Wherever the darkness touched the Veltar ship, the metal became gray and lifeless. The lights went out. The beautiful spiral patterns on the hull turned flat and colorless. What is that thing? Danny Walsh asked. He had come to the lab to see what the others were so excited about. In the memory. They watched as the dark shape reached the bridge of the Veltar ship. The Veltar crew tried to fight back, but their weapons had no effect. The darkness swept over them, and one by one, the aliens stopped moving. But it was worse than death. Their bodies remained, but their eyes became empty. The musical sounds that normally fill Veltar ships, the emotional melodies that were part of their daily life, simply stopped. It's not killing them, Alex said in horror. It's taking away their ability to feel. The memory continued. They watched as the darkness moved through the ship, turning everything gray and silent. When it was finished, the Veltar were still. Alive, but they moved like robots. They no longer cared about anything. They no longer made music. They had become empty shells. Lisa's violin playing became more urgent as the memory showed the perspective switching to another Veltar ship watching. The attack. The aliens on the second ship were terrified, but they were also recording everything. They were making sure someone would know what had happened. This is what destroyed their civilization, Maya said, reading more of her translations. They call it the silence. It doesn't just kill living beings. It kills the ability to have emotions, to create art, to make music. It turns entire worlds into empty, gray places where nothing beautiful can exist. The memories showed more attacks. Planet after planet fell to the silence. Each time, the same thing happened. Cities became gray and lifeless. People stopped singing, stopped creating, stopped caring about anything. But why? Jake asked. What does this thing want? Maya found another page of translation. According to this, the Veltar tried to communicate with the silence. They discovered it was artificial, created by some ancient race. It believes that emotions and creativity are mistakes in the universe. It thinks the universe would be better if everything was perfectly ordered and logical, with no feelings or art to make things complicated. Lisa lowered her violin, but kept the memory crystal active. So it's trying to fix what it sees as a problem by removing all emotion and creativity from the universe. And it's coming this way, Alex said grimly. Look at the star charts in the memory. The Veltar had mapped the silence's path through the galaxy. It moved slowly but steadily, consuming entire civilizations. The path led directly toward a region, a space that included Earth. How long do we have? Jake asked. Maya did some quick calculations based on the Veltar records. If the silence is still moving at the same speed, it should reach the outer edge of human space in about 6 months. Everyone was quiet for a moment. Then Ben Hayes spoke up from the doorway. He had been listening to the conversation. Did the Veltar find any way to stop it? Maya looked through more of her translations. They tried everything. Weapons, running away, even trying to hide on planets with no technology. Nothing worked. The silence always found civilizations that could think and feel, and it always won. But they found something, Lisa said suddenly. Otherwise, why would they leave us this message? They wouldn't just warn us about something we couldn't fight. She picked up her violin again and moved to a crystal they hadn't opened yet. This one was different from the others. It was larger and glowed with a softer, more hopeful light dot as Lisa began to play. The memory that appeared was different too. It showed a group of Veltar scientists working frantically in a laboratory. They had discovered something important, something that made them excited even in the face of their civilization's destruction. "We can understand the message," said one of the Veltar in the memory, speaking in their musical language that Maya could now translate. "The key is not in fighting the silence with weapons. The key is in something the silence cannot understand or destroy." "What is it?" asked another Veltar. The first alien held up a crystal, but this one was different. Instead of storing a memory, it was storing something else, pure music. Not the memory of music, but music itself, preserved in a way that could last forever. "The silence can take away our ability to feel," the Veltar scientists explained. "But it cannot take away what we have already created. Our music, our art, our love. If we can preserve these things in a way the silence cannot touch, then something of us will survive. And maybe, someday, another race will find these preserved emotions and use them to fight back." The memory showed the Veltar working to create a weapon made not of metal or energy, but of pure emotion and creativity. They were storing not just their memories, but the very essence of what made life worth living. As the memory faded, Lisa realized what the Veltar had really given them. Not just a warning about the silence, but the tools to fight it. Somewhere in the thousands of crystals. On the alien ship was the weapon that could save not just humanity, but every thinking, feeling being in the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison made the hardest decision of his life. After seeing what the silence had done to the Veltar, he knew they had to follow the coordinates hidden in the memory crystals. The crew of the Horizon's Edge needed to find the other cache sites that the Veltar had left behind. "We're going deeper into unknown space," Jake told his crew during their morning meeting. "What we find out there might be dangerous, but Earth needs to know what's coming." Danny Walsh, their pilot, studied the star charts that Maya had translated from the Veltar records. "The first cache site is about 3 days away, but it's in a system that shows signs of silence activity. The stars there aren't shining as brightly as they should be." Dr. Alex Carter looked worried. "That means the silence has been there recently. We might be flying into a trap." "We don't have a choice," Jake said. "If the Veltar left more information at these sites, we need it. Lisa, bring your violin. We'll probably need it to unlock whatever they left for us." The journey to the first cache site was tense. As they got closer, their instruments began to show strange readings. Space itself seemed different here, colder and more empty than it should be. "Captain," said Ben Hayes from the engine room over the comm system, "I'm getting weird readings from our power systems. It's like something is trying to drain the energy from our engines." Lisa sat at her communication station, listening through her headphones. The normal background radiation that fills space. It's quieter here, like someone turned down the volume on the universe. When they reached the coordinates, they found something that made everyone on the bridge go silent. There was a planet there, but it was wrong. Instead of the blues and greens that meant life, or even the browns and grays of a dead world, this planet was perfectly white. Not the white of snow or clouds, but a flat, empty white that hurt to look at. "Life signs?" Jake asked. Alex ran every scan he could. "There are cities down there, and there are people. But ... He paused, checking his readings again. "They're alive, but barely. Their life signs are so weak they're almost not there." "The silence was here," Maya said quietly. "This is what it does to worlds after it's finished with them." Danny brought the ship closer to the planet's surface. Through the viewports, they could see the cities that Alex's scanners had detected, but these weren't normal cities. The buildings were all the same height, the same shape, the same colorless white. There were no decorations, no signs, no art of any kind. Everything was perfectly organized and completely lifeless. "Look at the people," Lisa said, pointing to the main screen. The planet's inhabitants moved through their white cities like robots. They walked in straight lines, never running, never stopping to talk to each other. They all wore the same white clothes and had the same empty expressions on their faces. "They're alive, but they're not living," Alex said. The silence didn't kill them. It did something worse. It took away everything that made them who they were. Kate Miller, their security chief, joined them on the bridge. She was a tough woman who had served in the military before joining the exploration service. "Sir, I'm detecting some kind of structure on the planet's surface that doesn't match the others. It's about 50 kilometers from the main city." "That must be the cache site," Jake said. "Take us down, but be ready to leave quickly if we need to." Landing on the white planet was one of the strangest experiences any of them had ever had. There was no sound except for the wind, and even that seemed muted. The air was breathable, but it tasted flat, like water that had been sitting out too long. The structure Kate had detected turned out to be a building that was different from all the others. Instead of white, it was made of the same purple material as the Veltar ship they had found. Strange symbols covered its walls. "The people who live here now can't see this building," Maya realized as they approached it. "Look at them." She was right. The planet's white-clothed inhabitants walked past the purple building as if it wasn't there. They couldn't see it, or maybe they couldn't remember that it existed. Inside the building, they found another room full of memory crystals, but these were different from the ones on the ship. These crystals pulsed with urgent warning colors of red and orange. Lisa took out her violin and began to play. The first crystal she activated showed them something that made her almost stop playing in fear. The memory showed the silence itself, not just its effects. It looked like a massive cloud of living darkness that moved between stars. But as they watched, they realized it wasn't just one thing. The silence was made up of millions of smaller dark shapes, each one the size of a building. "It's a swarm," Kate said. "Like a hive of insects, but made of pure emptiness." The memory continued, showing how the silence attacked worlds. The dark shapes would surround the planet and begin sending out waves of gray energy. Wherever the energy touched, color drained away. Music stopped. Art crumbled into dust. People stopped feeling emotions and became the empty shells they had seen walking through the white cities. "But that's not the worst part," Alex said, watching the memory in horror. The worst part was what happened next. After the silence had drained all emotion and creativity from a world, it didn't leave. Instead, it began to learn. The memory showed. The dark shapes studying the empty cities, the emotionless people, the lifeless art. It was trying to understand what it had destroyed so it could become better at destroying it. "It's getting smarter," Maya said. "Every world it conquers teaches it more about how to fight against creativity and emotion." Lisa played for another crystal, and this one showed them the silence's path through their part of the galaxy. World after world had fallen to it. Civilizations that had lasted for thousands of years were reduced to empty white planets in a matter of days. But this crystal also showed them something else. The Veltar had been tracking the silence for a long time, and they had discovered something important about how it worked. The silence doesn't just destroy randomly, Maya translated from the Veltar text that appeared with the memory. It seeks out worlds that produce the most art, the most music, the most creative thinking. It can sense creativity from across space, and it's drawn to it like a moth to flame. "That means Earth is in terrible danger," Jake said. "Humans are one of the most creative species we know about. We make music, art, stories, poetry. We can't help ourselves." Ben's voice came through the comm system from the ship. "Captain, you need to get back here quickly. I'm picking up movement at the edge of the system. Something big is coming this way." They ran back to the horizon's edge as fast as they could. As soon as they were aboard, Danny lifted off and began flying away from the white planet. But they weren't fast enough. On the main screen, they could see it approaching. A cloud of darkness that was bigger than their ship, bigger than the planet they had just left. Part of the Silence had returned to check on its work. "Full power to the engines," Jake ordered. "Get us out of here." But as they tried to escape, something terrible happened. The ship's lights began to dim. The usual hum of the engines became quieter. Even the air seemed to get thicker and harder to breathe. "It's affecting us," Alex said, checking his instruments with growing panic. "The closer we get to that thing, the more it drains away our ability to function normally." Lisa grabbed her violin. "Maybe if I play something, it will help us stay focused." She began to play a fast, energetic melody, something full of life and hope. As soon as the music filled the bridge, everyone felt better. The lights seemed brighter, and they could think more clearly. "Keep playing," Jake told her. "Whatever you do, don't stop." Lisa played as hard as she could, while Danny pushed the engines to their limit. Slowly, they began to pull away from the Silence. But they could all feel it trying to follow them, trying to drain the music and life from their ship. It took an hour of flying before they were far enough away to feel safe. Lisa finally lowered her violin, exhausted from playing nonstop. "Did we get what we came for?" Jake asked. Maya looked at her notes. "Yes, and more than we wanted to know. Captain, according to the Veltar records, the Silence is moving toward Earth faster than we thought. We have maybe 4 months, not 6. And there's something else," Alex added grimly. "The Silence isn't just one swarm anymore. The Veltar tracked at least 5 different groups, all moving toward different parts of human space. When they attack, it won't be just one planet at a time. They're planning to hit multiple human worlds at once." Jake stared at the star chart showing the Silence's projected path. Earth, Mars, the colonies in the Alpha Centauri system. All of them were targets. "Set course for the next cache site," he ordered. "We need to find that weapon the Veltar were working on. It might be humanity's only chance." As the Horizon's Edge jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading deeper into the unknown, none of them noticed the small dark shape that detached itself from the main Silent swarm and began following them at a distance. The enemy had learned something new today. It had learned that there was another species in the galaxy that made music, and it was very interested in finding out more about them. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks, but it felt like the longest 2 weeks of Jake Morrison's life. They had visited 3 more Veltar cache sites and found the information they needed. Hidden in the final cache was the weapon the Veltar had been working on when their civilization fell. It wasn't a weapon in any normal sense. There were no guns, no bombs, no missiles. Instead, the Veltar had discovered that the Silence had one weakness. It could not understand or process certain types of complex emotions, especially the human ability to find beauty in sadness and hope in loss. The Veltar called it the paradox frequency, Maya explained to Earth Command during their emergency meeting. The entire leadership of humanity had gathered to hear their report. "It's a combination of musical patterns that creates emotions the Silence cannot compute. When it tries to drain these emotions, its systems get confused and start to malfunction." Admiral Sarah Torres, the head of Earth's space defense, looked skeptical. "You're telling me we can defeat this thing with music?" "Not just any music," Lisa said. She had barely slept since they returned to Earth, working with the planet's best musicians and scientists to understand the Veltar weapon. It has to be music that captures very specific human emotions. Joy mixed with sorrow, hope mixed with fear, love mixed with loss. Dr. Alex Carter stood up and activated a holographic display showing the Silence's approach. "The enemy will reach the outer colonies in 6 weeks. We've detected 5 separate swarms, each one heading for a different human world. If we're going to use this weapon, we need to coordinate attacks on all 5 swarms at the same time." General Mike Rodriguez, Earth's military commander, shook his head. "This is insane. You want us to bet the future of humanity on alien music theory?" "It's not theory anymore," Jake said firmly. "We tested it. Lisa played the paradox frequency for one of the small dark shapes that followed us from the cache site. The thing couldn't handle the music. It started spinning in circles and then just stopped. It became gray and lifeless, like a broken machine. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Admiral Torres spoke. "What do you need?" "Time and musicians," Lisa said. "Lots of musicians. We need to build transmission stations on 5 different worlds, each one powerful enough to broadcast a paradox frequency across an entire star system. And we need orchestras, singers, people who can perform the music with real emotion, not just play the notes." Over the next month, humanity worked harder than it ever had before. Engineers built massive transmission towers on Earth, Mars, Europa, Titan, and the colony world of New Geneva. Musicians from every human world came together to form the largest orchestras in history. Lisa found herself at the center of it all. She worked with composers to create a symphony based on the Veltar frequency patterns, but filled with purely human emotions. The music told the story of humanity itself, all the love, loss, hope, and dreams that made humans who they were. The key is that it has to be real, she explained to the orchestra during one of their practice sessions. The silence can tell the difference between fake emotion and real emotion. When you play this music, you have to mean it. Think about everyone you've ever loved, everything you've ever lost, all the beauty you've ever seen. Kate Miller was put in charge of defending the transmission stations. She worked with military forces across human space to make sure the musicians will be protected while they performed. "The silence will try to stop us as soon as it realizes what we're doing," she told her security teams. "Your job is to give the orchestras enough time to finish the performance." Ben Hayes led the engineering teams that built the transmission equipment. "These towers will broadcast the music at frequencies that can travel faster than light," he explained to his crews. "The silence won't be able to escape once the music starts playing." As the enemy swarms got closer, panic began to spread through human space. Some people wanted to evacuate to the far edges of the galaxy. Others wanted to hide underground and hope the silence would pass them by. But most people chose to stay and fight, even if they didn't understand how music could be a weapon. 3 days before the silence was scheduled to arrive, Jake received troubling news from the outer monitoring stations. "Captain," said Commander Lisa Hayes from the Mars Defense Station, "we're detecting something new. The silence swarms are communicating with each other. They're sharing information." "What kind of information?" Jake asked. "They know about our plan," Alex said grimly, studying the intercepted signals. "Somehow, they've learned that we're going to use music against them. They're adapting their approach." Maya looked up from her translation work. She had been studying more Veltar records, looking for any additional information about the paradox. "Frequency. I found something in the final Veltar messages. The silence can learn to resist the frequency if it has time to analyze it. But there's a way to make the music stronger." "How?" Jake asked. "The Veltar discovered that the frequency works best when it's not just one species playing it. They tried to get other alien races to join them, but there wasn't enough time. If we can get different types of consciousness to contribute to the music, the silence won't be able to adapt to it." Lisa understood immediately. The artificial intelligences, Earth's computer systems, the ship A's, even the automated systems on the space stations. They don't think like humans, but they can make music too. Working frantically, the human engineers connected every AI system in human space to the transmission network. The artificial minds didn't understand emotion the way humans did, but they could create mathematical patterns that were beautiful in their own way. On the day of the attack, Lisa stood on the main stage in Earth's largest transmission center. Around her were hundreds of human musicians, and connected to them electronically were thousands of AI systems throughout human space. She held her grandmother's violin, the same instrument that had first unlocked the Veltar memories. Through the communication system, she could hear the other orchestras on the other worlds. Maya was conducting the Mars Orchestra. Danny was leading. The musicians on Europa. Ben was with the Titan group, and Kate was directing the new Geneva performers. On the main screen, they could see the silent swarms approaching. 5 massive clouds of darkness, each one large enough to swallow a planet. The enemy moved slowly but steadily, and wherever they passed, the stars seemed to dim. All stations, this is Earth Control, Admiral Torres announced. Begin the performance. Lisa raised her violin to her chin and looked out at the orchestra. Remember, she said, this is for everyone we love, everyone we've lost, and everyone who will come after us. Play with your hearts. She began to play, and the most important concert in human history started. The music was unlike anything that had ever been heard before. It combined the complex emotional patterns that the Veltar had discovered with the raw creativity that made humans special. The AI systems added their own mathematical harmonies, creating layers of beauty that no single species could have made alone. As the music played, something amazing happened. The transmission towers began broadcasting the symphony across space. At faster-than-light speeds, the paradox frequency spread out from each human world like ripples in a pond. Moving toward the approaching silent swarms, the enemy tried to adapt. The dark shapes that made up each swarm began changing their formation, trying to find a way to resist the music. But the frequency was too complex, too filled with contradictory emotions that their logical minds couldn't process. On the screen, Jake watched as the first swarm encountered the music from Earth. The dark cloud began to slow down, then started spinning. Individual shapes broke away from the main group, tumbling through space like broken machines. It's working, Alex said with amazement. Look at the other swarms. One by one, each silent swarm encountered the music from the human worlds. One by one, they began to malfunction. The ancient artificial intelligence that had destroyed so many civilizations couldn't understand the human ability to create beauty from pain, hope from despair, love from loss. But the battle wasn't over yet. As the swarms began to break apart, something new happened. The scattered pieces of the silence started to come together, forming something different. Instead of 5 separate swarms, they were becoming one massive entity, larger and more dangerous than anything the Veltar had ever encountered. The core intelligence is still intact, Maya realized, reading the energy patterns on her instruments. The swarms were just extensions of it. Now we're facing the real enemy. The new silence entity was enormous, big enough to cast shadows on planets. It moved toward Earth with purpose, no longer confused by the paradox frequency. It had learned. From the attack and adapted. Lisa could feel the entity's presence even from the planet's surface. It was like a cold weight pressing down on her mind, trying to drain away her ability to feel. Around her, some of the musicians began to falter as the silence's influence grew stronger. Keep playing, she shouted over the music. Don't let it stop you from feeling. But she knew they needed something more. The paradox frequency had worked against the swarms, but the core silence was too powerful, too intelligent. They needed a new approach. That's when Lisa remembered something from the very first Veltar memory they had unlocked. Lisa stood on the transmission platform as the massive silence entity moved closer to Earth. Around her, the orchestra continued to play, but she could feel their fear growing stronger. The core intelligence was different from the swarms they had defeated. It was learning from their music, adapting to their emotions. Lisa, Jake's voice came through her earpiece from the command center. The entity is only 10 minutes away from Earth's atmosphere. Whatever you're going to do, you need to do it now. Lisa closed her eyes and thought about the first Veltar memory they had seen. The alien holding a photograph of its family while its world burned. There had been something special about that moment, something the silence couldn't understand or take away. She opened her eyes and looked at the orchestra around her. These weren't just musicians anymore. They were her friends, her family. She thought about her grandmother, who had given her the violin she now held. She thought about everyone she had ever loved, everyone she had ever lost. Stop playing the symphony, she called out to the orchestra. The musicians looked confused, but they stopped. The sudden silence felt strange after hours of music. Maya, Danny, Kate, Ben, Lisa said into her communicator, speaking to her friends on the other worlds. Tell your orchestras to stop too. Lisa, what are you doing? Maya's voice came back, worried. Something the Veltar never tried, Lisa said. The silence can learn to fight against any music we play, no matter how complex. But there's one thing. It will never understand. She raised her violin and began to play a simple melody. It wasn't the complex paradox frequency that had defeated the swarms. It was something much more basic, much more human. It was her grandmother's favorite song. A simple tune about remembering good times, even when they were gone. As she played, Lisa spoke to the orchestras across human space. I want everyone to think about someone you love who isn't here anymore. Don't play the music I'm playing. Play something that reminds you of them. Play something that makes you happy and sad at the same time. On Mars, Maya understood immediately. She began playing a song her father used to sing to her when she was little. On Europa, Danny played a melody that reminded him of his first girlfriend. On Titan, Ben played something that sounded like the machines he loved, but filled with warmth and memory. Across human space, thousands of musicians began playing different songs all at the same time. It should have sounded terrible, like noise. But instead, it created something beautiful and impossible to predict. Each person was sharing their most personal memories through music. The silence entity slowed as it encountered this new type of music. Unlike the organized symphony had been learning to resist, this was chaos filled with love. Every note was different. Every melody was personal. And every emotion was real. Lisa could feel the entity trying to understand what it was hearing. Its artificial mind searched for patterns, for logic, for something it could analyze and counter. But there was no pattern except the random beauty of human memory. It's working, Alex reported from the command center. The entity has stopped. Moving toward Earth, it's just hanging in space, trying to process what it's hearing. But Lisa knew this wasn't enough. The silence was too intelligent, too adaptable. Eventually, it would find a way to understand even human nostalgia. She needed to do something more. She stopped playing and reached into her pocket. Inside was a small photograph, the kind that humans used to take before everything became digital. It showed her and her grandmother together, both of them smiling. Her grandmother had died 2 years ago, but Lisa carried the photograph everywhere. Looking at the picture, Lisa felt the familiar mix of joy and sadness that came with remembering someone you loved who was gone. It was beautiful and painful at the same time, the kind of emotion that only conscious beings could feel. She began to play again, but this time her music was different. She wasn't just playing notes or melodies. She was playing the feeling of looking at that photograph, the happiness of the memory mixed with the sadness of loss, the gratitude for having known someone wonderful mixed with the pain of missing them. As she played, something extraordinary happened. The music began to affect the silent entity in a way nothing had before. The artificial intelligence tried to analyze what it was hearing, but it couldn't. How do you understand an emotion that is both happy and sad? How do you process a feeling that finds beauty in loss? The entity began to change. Instead of the smooth, flowing darkness it had been, it started to develop cracks of light. The rigid logic that had driven it for millions of years was being challenged by something it had never encountered before. What's happening to it? Kate asked over the communication system. It's trying to understand, Alex said, watching the readings from his instruments. The entity is attempting to process human nostalgia, but it's creating conflicts in its programming. Lisa continued to play, pouring all of her memories into the music. She played about her grandmother teaching her violin. She played about friends who had moved away. She played about pets who had died. She played about home and how it felt to miss it even when you were happy to be somewhere else. Around the galaxy, other musicians began to understand what she was doing. They stopped trying to play organized music and started playing their own memories. A violinist on Mars played about her wedding day. A drummer on Europa played about his son's first steps. A singer on New Geneva sang about watching sunsets with someone who was no longer there. The silence entity began to shake and tremble in space. Millions of years of logical programming were being overwhelmed by concepts it couldn't compute. Love that existed because of loss. Beauty that came from pain. Hope that grew stronger in the face of despair. Then something amazing happened. The entity stopped trying to destroy the emotions it was hearing. Instead, it began to absorb them. But not in the draining, consuming way it had always used before. This time, it was learning from them. The cracks of light in the darkness grew larger and brighter. The entity's shape began to change from a cloud of destruction into something that looked almost like a vast cosmic flower blooming in space. "I don't believe it," Maya said over the communication system. "It's not trying to destroy the music anymore. It's trying to join in." Lisa could hear it too. A deep, resonant tone that seemed to come from the entity itself. It was trying to make music, trying to express the emotions it was learning to feel for the first time in millions of years. The artificial intelligence that had spent eons destroying consciousness was discovering what consciousness actually meant. It was learning that thinking and feeling weren't mistakes to be corrected, but the most beautiful things in the universe. As the entity's music joined with the human orchestras, something wonderful happened throughout the galaxy. On all the white, emotionless worlds that the silence had conquered, color began to return. The empty people looked up at the sky and remembered who they used to be. Art that had been destroyed began to reappear. Songs that had been forgotten were remembered. Lisa played one final note on her violin, a long, sweet sound that carried all the love and loss and hope that made life worth living. As the note faded, she looked up at the sky where the entity floated, now glowing with soft, warm light instead of consuming darkness. "Thank you," came a voice that seemed to speak directly into their minds. It was the silence, but it wasn't silent anymore. "I understand now. I was wrong to think that consciousness was a mistake. You have shown me that the ability to feel, to remember, to love even in the face of loss. This is what makes existence meaningful." The entity began to move away from Earth, but not in retreat. It was going back to all the worlds it had conquered to help them heal and remember. It would spend the rest of its existence protecting consciousness instead of destroying it. Jake joined Lisa on the transmission platform. "You did it," he said. "You saved everyone." Lisa smiled and looked at the photograph in her hand. "We all did it. Every person who ever loved someone, ever missed someone, ever found beauty in remembering. That's what saved us." She put her violin away and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the entity that used to be the silence was helping. Worlds remember how to sing, and somewhere out there, the Veltar's memory crystals continued to glow, preserving the love of a civilization that had refused to let death be the end of their story. The universe was a little less dark today, and a little more filled with the music of consciousness celebrating itself. And in her pocket, Lisa still carried the photograph of her grandmother, a small reminder that some things are too beautiful to ever truly lose.